Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. Today it's heat number 4 of my fountain pen tournament for 2023. This is the final heat. Semi-finals start next week. So the pens that we're going to be looking at. First one, we've got a Jinhao 51A. Love the colouring of this. I don't know how well it shows up on the camera. I think that's really pretty. We'll take a closer look though when we're down on the table. That goes up against another, well, to be honest, pretty pen. This is the Just Turnings Enceladus, and this is in a Brooks Blanks resin. Just look at that. That's so nice. Both pens really enjoyable, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how they compare because there's a very big price difference between the two. Join me now down on the desk. We'll take a walk through the pens. We'll do some size comparisons, weights and measures, a writing sample, then I'll give you my thoughts before handing over to you for you to vote on the winner. Welcome down to the table. Here we've got today's pens. We've got the Jinhao 51A. Just slowly turn this around for you. I do like the look of this material that's made of, I think is it blue swirls? We've got various blues in there and some blacks. Quite pretty. That's going up against the Just Turnings hand-turned Enceladus. This is in a Brooks Blanks material and it's golden blue jay. Two very different pens. Two pens that are coming from very different price ranges. The Jinhao 51A, that was $8 Aussie. The Just Turnings pen, that was 185 Aussie dollars. So we're definitely talking very different pens today. Let's take a walk through the body. So we'll start with the Jinhao 51A. So the cap, it's metallic. We've got a slight point at the top, and then it looks fairly square as it goes into the clip. At the bottom of the clip, we've got a ball, very stiff, just about movable. We've got a little logo there at the top, and I like the way that the clip it tapers in. The actual cap itself, we taper out until about halfway down the clip, then it seems to be the same width. All the way down, at the bottom here we've got Jinhao, and as we turn it around, we've got 51A there on the back. Tells us what it is. From the cap, there's a step down. I notice it. It's more noticeable than on a number of pens, but it's not that steep. We come into the body, and I do like this body. Just slowly turn the whole pen around for you. I think it's really nice. As I said earlier on, it's quite pretty. That seems to be the same width till we get fairly close to the end, maybe just over 3/4 of the way down. Then we taper in until we get a dome at the end. The pen, it's a cartridge converter. So there's the cartridge in there. Got loads of ink in there. Came with a cartridge converter. It's metal fittings, so not a pen you'd even think about eyedropping. And we'll take a closer look at the nibs in a second, but this is a hooded nib pen. With the Just Turnings pen, I'm just going to have to turn this around for you to look at this gorgeous material. It is so pretty. You know, we've got golds, we've got greens, we've got blues, we've got like turquoise colours, loads of different colours, teals. Very pretty. Not in your face. It's not like a Bennu where the sparkles and the colours are right in your face. This is nice and subtle. The cap, we've got a dome at the top, all still part of that Brooks material. We then come down into the cap. There may be a slight taper, could just be my eyes, but it looks to me like there is a very slight taper as we come down towards the bottom of the cap. No clip on this, don't need a clip. I use it on my desk, and if I'm out and about, well, I've got my pen case with me anyway. Bottom of the cap, feels like there's a little bit of starting to taper down, and then yes, there's a step, but it's not noticeable down to the body. The body, again, this is just to my eye, we're tapering down ever so gently all the way down till we come to the end of the pen. And there we've got another curved end. If I just open the pen up, we'll look at the nibs shortly. Another one, cartridge converter, nearly out of ink. Hopefully I've got enough ink there to do my writing sample. What I'll then be doing is, assuming this pen wins, it'll have a different ink when we next look at it. I've really enjoyed though this Van Dieman's ink in here. Loads of turns there. I'm guessing this could be eyedroppered. I don't intend to do that, but it's nice to know you've got the opportunity. And again, that converter came with the pen. Let me just pop the cap back on, hopefully without knocking the table all over. So the caps, on the 51A, the cap just slides off. It slides on and off. That reveals the section and nib there. And with the Just Turnings pen, so I'm going to hold my fingers here, so it's half a turn, 1 turn, 1.5 turns, about 1 3/4 turns to take that cap off. And that reveals this Yoho nib. Taking a closer look at the nib, so we're starting with the 51A again. It's a hooded nib. Really, what else can I say? You can't really see much, can you? Because most of the nib is hidden by this all black section. If we look at the Just Turnings pen, this is a Yoho nib. This is gold coloured. You know, it's a plain Yoho nib, no engraving on it. What we do have at the side there, we've got B, which is broad. This is a broad nibbed pen. The 51A, it's a hooded nib, but I believe it's a fine nib. The sections are very different, aren't they? We've just got this one piece section here on the 51A, where it's just tapering down and it's all black. Here on the Just Turnings, the section made from the same material as the rest of the pen. So it ties that all together. Got loads of threads there. If I just show this pen unposted, there it is, very nice. Balances really well in the hand. It will post, but it posts right near the end. So if I hold my finger, that's how far down, and I'm chucking the cap. Doesn't post very well at all. And to me, makes it so long. It feels a bit like a magic wand. But unposted, this is a very nice pen to use. The Jinhao 51A, again, unposted, very nice. I hold my pens down at the bottom, so I have to be careful here, but my fingers seem to sit quite nicely there. Again, it's one which posts. This time does post a lot nicer. There's a bit of weight in the cap though, so I do feel that. So I tend to use this pen unposted. Let's do some size comparisons. Here's my two standard pens, Pilot Metropolitan, Lamy Safari. The Metropolitan and the 51A, very similar shapes, aren't they? Very similar sizes. The Just Turnings pen, that's a lot longer than the Lamy Safari. Let's take the caps off these. So with the caps off, the Jinhao and the Metropolitan, again, they're following along really with that same sizing. The only thing really different between the two is the nib. We've got the hooded nib and we've got a nib we can actually see. With the Safari and the Just Turnings pen, again, the Just Turnings pen ever so slightly longer than the Safari. I mean, I'm thinking we're talking maybe 5-6 millimeters. It is noticeable in the hand. I'm not going to show these posted. We know that the Just Turnings one doesn't post very well, so it's not going to add anything really to our story. Let's swap over and we'll fetch in some pens that are in roughly the same price range. So we're starting unposted. I've brought in a Platinum Preppy that was $8 Aussie, so virtually the same price as the Jinhao 51A. I've also brought in a Bennu Talisman, and that was 167 Aussie dollars. So a little bit cheaper than the Just Turnings pen, but it was the nearest pen I had in terms of price. If we're looking at these, let's straighten that up a bit. It's very similar to the previous story. The Preppy and the Jinhao 51A, very similar in size. The Preppy maybe 3 or 4 millimeters shorter. The Bennu and the Just Turnings one, we're talking maybe 5 millimeters, 6 millimeters shorter there for the Bennu. Just look at this Bennu here with all the sparkles. This is what I'm saying. When you look at them side by side, that Just Turning's pen, to me, just looks, yes, it's still got sparkle, it's still blingy, but looks nowhere near as bad as the Bene. Let's pop the caps on these. With the caps on, let's be honest, we're continuing with that same theme. You know, the first two, the Jinhao and the Preppy, similar size, but the Bennu noticeably shorter than the Just Turning's pen. Let's swap on over and fetch in the rule of measuring. Here we've got the rule of measuring. We'll start with the Jinhao 51A. So the full pen with the cap on, that comes in 13.8 centimetres. Unposted, 12.8 centimetres. Posted, 14.9 centimetres. The width of the body at its widest point, that's 1.11 centimetre. The cap is 1.25 centimetres at the widest. And then the section, that goes from 0.8, I measured it about here, which is roughly where the bottom of my fingers will sit, and that goes up to 1.08. Very thin pen, still nice and comfortable to use though. With the Just Turning's pen, full pen, 14.7 centimetres. Unposted, comes in at 13.4 centimetres. I say you can sort of post it, makes it very long, 18.8 centimetres. The width of the body at its widest part, so I've measured it down here, that comes in at 1.38 centimetres. The cap, 1.51 centimetres, and then the section, the narrowest is here because it's slightly hourglass, so we go from 1.07 up to 1.18 centimetres. Nice size pen. This one is very nice to hold. Let's swap on over and fetch in the scales of weighing. Here we've got the scales of weighing, starting again with the Jinhao 51A, full pen 21 grams. Body only 12 grams. Cap 9 grams. Light pen. The Just Turning's pen, the full pen 19 grams, slightly lighter than the Jinhao. The body 14 grams, so slightly heavier than the Jinhao. And the cap 5 grams, quite a light cap. I say the cap really, never use it posted, so it doesn't really affect me in terms of any difference in weight from having a longer pen. Let's swap on over and fetch in the notepad of testing. Here we've got the notepad of testing, Oxford optic paper, really nice fountain pen friendly paper. We'll start with the Jinhao 51A. So we have here, right, this is because I've had the cap on and off. I have noticed this a couple of times, but once it gets going again, I'm going to say this is a fine, it's a hooded nib. $8 Aussie. As I say, the cap was on and off, so the nib does dry out a little bit. In normal writing, I have had it dry out once, but I'd left it about 5 weeks between uses. But other than that, I picked the pen up right straight away. The ink is by Oster. And it's Australian. Sky blue. Unfortunately, outside my window today, the sky is very grey and overcast, so certainly not seeing the blue skies today. Drying times, we got immediate. 10 seconds. 30 seconds. And at 30 seconds, that's just smudging the ever so tiny, so I'm not going to go and do a 1 minute test. I'm going to move the mic down to the page so you can hear the pen writing. This is enjoyable to write with. Yes, it's a bit on the thin side, but it's usable for me. Puts down a nice thin line. You can see some shading coming through. Quite a nice looking ink. Unfortunately, I've only got a sample of this ink, and this is the last of it that's in here at the moment. But yeah, it is quite nice. Line variation, I've got to be honest, I don't expect any at all. Anyway, there's no pressure. That's with pressure. Next to no difference. None, with, none, with, none, and with. And then flow. This is going forwards. And this is going backwards. Still getting used to doing this. It feels really alien to me going the opposite way. But it's a nice pen. It writes really nicely. I'd say we did have that little dry out there at the start. That's due to the amount that I have the cap on and off whilst I'm going through the initial parts of the video. But once we're going, beautiful. Nice line, consistent. Not an overly wet ink, so if you're left-handed, maybe you'll get away with this. But yeah, it's nice, I like it. Move the page up ever so slightly. Then we'll fetch in the Just Turnings pen. So this is nearly out of ink, so hopefully it'll last. So this is the Just Turnings. And the model on the card that they sent with it is Enceladus. I think I spelled that right. Broad nibbed. And this was 185 Aussie dollars. The ink is another Australian ink. Just Turnings is an Australian manufacturer, so I thought let's stick with Australian. We've got Van Dieman. And it's Deciduous. Beech. Quite an apt one to use as well. We're just going into autumn here, so to me this colour of this ink reminds me a lot of like the autumn leaves where you start getting them oranges and brown colours coming in. Drying times. Immediate. We've got a bit of blue from the previous one. 10 seconds. Quite a wet pen really, isn't it? 30 seconds. 1 minute. Well, we're still very wet there at a minute. I'm going to do a 2-minute test. Go down to the next line. Even 2 minutes, that's still hardly looks that drier than what it did at 1 minute. Not going to go any further though. So as a combo, this is very wet, and I have found that in my test writing. Let's move the mic and write a sentence. That is very smooth, hardly any feedback. I love the shading we're seeing in this ink. Very nice. And it's not just on this paper, it's on most of the papers I've used this pen and ink on. I've had this same glorious shading coming through. Line variation. No pressure. That's got some pressure, so a slightly wider line. Could be though because more ink is going down rather than anything else. No with, none, with, none, and with. So again, where we've got the pressure, we do see slightly wider lines coming down. And flow. Let's go the other way. Not had any problems with flow with this pen at all. Writes really well, regardless of paper. It's very, very nice. As I say, we've already seen the ink, it's nearly out. I'm glad it lasted to get us through this test. Once I've finished today's recording session, I'll be cleaning this out. I'm not sure. That's a decision for later. Let's move this to one side, give that a chance to dry. Whilst that's on the side, this is Tomoe River 51 GSM paper. Here we can see we've got the writing here, the 51A. Very nice. You know, quite an attractive shade in there. Very nice colour. I like this. To me, it's a nice pale blue. It's actually a professional looking blue. I'd be quite happy to use that in a professional setting. The Just Turnings pen, again, nice orange. On here, it's very, very evident all that shading. Down here at the bottom, again, it shows just how wet it is. Very nice. I've used this pen, well, I've used both the pens on, you know, that Tomoe River paper, this optic paper, cheap copier paper, all sorts of different papers. I try to really use my pens on a lot of different types of paper when I'm exploring them, just so I can see how they perform. So what are my thoughts on these two pens? The size is a big difference. Definitely the Jinhao 51A, it's a lot thinner. The looks, very different. The 51A, it's nice, don't get me wrong. I just think this Just Turnings one, to me, very attractive to look at. And it's not too in your face, so I wouldn't take it to every business meeting, but I'd be quite happy to take this into an office to work with. Writing experience, well, other than the little issue at the start there, had no problems with either pen. I do find there's more feedback with the 51A, so if you like a little bit of feedback, I think this is definitely a pen for you. The Just Turnings one, it's a broad nib, it's exceptionally smooth. It's a Yoho nib, so you know roughly what you're going to get from that anyway. Very wet, whereas the Jinhao 51A, that's nice and dry, so certainly left-handers with this ink, this Just Turnings pen, I'd have to think twice about that. Ink flow, again we've seen no issues with ink flow. Comfort, the 51A is alright, a bit too narrow for me. I would like to see it really a little bit wider, but that's just personal choice. Whereas the Just Turnings pen, it's got the width. With the hourglass shape here on the section, it guides my fingers. I hold my pens down near the bottom, so that's nice and comfy. If you hold your pens further up, again, the way the section's shaped, I think you'll be alright with that as well. Both pens do feel quite light. Value for money. This is where we need to bear in mind both these pens, they're aimed at different price points, they're aimed at different use cases. To be honest, they're aimed at different people that are buying pens. $8 Aussie for the Jinhao 51A. It's a nice, cheap, cheerful pen. Does what it needs to. Lets you get ideas out of your head and onto paper in a way that you enjoy. So it is pleasant to use. Looks alright, you know, not overly in your face, but not overly ugly. It's just a solid performer. The Just Turnings Enceladus. It's a hand-turned pen. You're paying for that. You know, this is craftsmanship going into this pen, whereas the 51A, that's likely to be coming off a manufacturing line, so it's all machine made. Not as much in terms of actual handmade parts in there. It's $185. It's a lot of money for a pen. What you're buying though isn't just a pen, is it? It's that little bit of collectible, I'm going to call it art, whether you call it art or not, that's down to you. But it's something, it's different, it's unusual. Because of the nature of how the resins are made, you're highly unlikely to find another pen with this same combination of resins. So in that respect, it's a unique experience, it's a unique pen. But they're my thoughts on these two pens, the Jinhao 51A with Robert Oster Australian Sky Blue, and the Just Turnings Enceladus with Van Dieman Deciduous Beech. It's over to you now. Head on over to the community tab on my YouTube page. There you'll find a poll. Go there, vote which one do you want to be the winner of this heat, and move forward to the semi-finals. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. What do you think about these two pens? Have you gone and voted already? Are you going to vote? Please drop a comment down below. What are your thoughts on these pens? Please hit the thumbs up button. Every time you like, every time you comment, just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.